podcast about comics. A podcast about comics.
Welcome back to another episode of a podcast about comics. This is your boy on remote location from my man's man cave. My man between the panels, we've been trying to get him to go ahead and make another debut. We've been missing him in the lair, so we're on site here with him, and we're going to chop it up today and talk all things Marvel and just nerd stuff. All right, how you feeling to be here today, brother?
Feeling good, man. It's been a while. Looking forward to it.
Good. One of the things I've been asking, like, a lot of my nerd friends, my colleagues, a lot of people that I chop it up with when it comes to pop culture, Disney Plus, what we got in 2021 is...
We got a lot.
We got 5 different shows coming out of the Marvel canon, right? And I've been asking them to chop it up. So give me from your worst to your best. And
Worst
why?
to the best.
So the one you love, because all of them were great. We love them all, right?
Yeah, that's hard. They were all really great in their own right. So let's start off with saying that.
Okay.
Man. So are we including the What If series in there for sure?
Yeah.
Okay.
All the Disney Plus under Marvel.
All Disney Plus.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Well, I know it just finished, and I know it was near and dear to a lot of people's hearts, and I am going to acknowledge that it did. I'm just going to say, first off, we're going to start with worst, because bad news first, right? Get that out of the way.
Yeah.
As much as I did love it, and it did give a good send-off to Natasha, and there was a lot of good things, my personal worst, and it's hard to say it because there was a lot of good things in it, I'm going to have to say was Hawkeye.
Okay.
And the reason being, there was just so many things I think that could have just been done a little bit better, and every single time I was just like, oh, they just missed on that note. Oh, they just missed on that note.
Okay.
And especially when it came to the build-up that they had for Kingpin, and just because the whole entire Daredevil series going back to the Netflix series was such a near and dear series to close into my heart. Daredevil in general, Kingpin in general, just street level characters. I mean, going down. I mean, I'm wearing Moon Knight for a reason here, so.
Yeah.
But I just feel like there's a big miss because it was just such a build up, and then what we got, I felt just didn't hit the mark. No pun intended there with the Hawkeye.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know. It just of the series and what it could have been. And the story it told with Clint, I liked how we saw the actual struggle of the one Avenger that is truly just a human Avenger. He doesn't have any superpowers. He doesn't have anything special about him. He's not a millionaire. He truly is just a great marksman. And it was good to see that struggle. It was good to see that struggle post-blip. Mm-hmm. See the struggle he had to deal with his family. See the struggle he had to deal with Natasha. Passing and still having that mark on him and everything with Yelena and everything that came into play. But I just felt like it was rushed.
Really?
I really did.
Okay.
I felt like that series, and I feel like that's not a knock against everything on Disney Plus, but it is, I think, a knock against everything that they've been doing. Is it just felt like if you could throw, and I think we've had this conversation, you and I, off camera a few times, if they could throw in a couple more episodes to each of these series, I feel like you could just tell the story a little bit more. And again, you're telling me to take some of the best content that has come out in years, let alone Marvel. I mean, if you look around this room, there's a lot more Marvel in here than there is DC, so that's definitely my fandom. But of the series that came out, I would have to definitely say Hawkeye would be lowest on the most amazing totem pole of 2021 content to come out on Disney Plus.
Okay.
And that's hard for me to do because it was really, 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 really freaking good.
Yeah.
So
it was.
It's not me saying it's bad. It's just you told me to rank it against the other ones.
Yeah.
So
yeah. Okay.
I'm curious to see what you think about that because I don't think I've thrown that your way.
No.
And I think you're having like a visceral reaction as I'm telling you this right now.
I'm trying to process because I'm like, whoa, I was not expecting this.
I think the last time we got together, we were still watching the series, and I don't think we had the discussion.
What were we? No, we were finishing up.
The finale, I think, was just airing the last time we were talking, or it was like the week of.
Was it?
But regardless, I'm curious to see what you think.
Okay. After that, we're going up to best. I'm gonna give you mine.
We're gonna go in order. Okay, I thought we were gonna throw some feedback here.
Well, cause I'm gonna break down why I thought I was gonna give mine as well.
Okay.
Okay, my fifth worst was What If.
Okay.
Or my least favorite was What If.
See, mine was close for it to being What If.
Okay.
But the only reason it wasn't What If, being that you're about to break into What If, the only reason it wasn't What If is because it was such a leap and such, I think, a risk for Disney Plus and just Marvel in general to do What If. Like, think about it. Like,
and execute it right.
And execute it right. How many times do you think it's going to be okay for... I mean, when it comes down to it, it was almost... it was an animated series, so kids were throwing on this show and watching the Avengers get slaughtered. Like, and it being okay. A lot of people were thinking, oh, I'm going to throw this on. This is going to be like a great heartfelt show. And, I mean, the nod to Chadwick alone was so well done. And just to see him take on these roles that you wouldn't expect him. I mean, you were expecting to see T'Challa, but in such a different role.
And then the little things that he would say.
Exactly.
You know.
Exactly. So
death is not the end, right? As long as you carry them with you, they live on.
And knowing he was doing this with everything he was already facing and dealing with, and then just the overall arc. I mean, granted, we didn't get the Gamora episode. Spoiler alert, in case you have not watched the What If series. What are you doing at this point?
At this point, right?
But there was just so many things that go back. I guess that had a personal tie to things that I enjoyed in my childhood. Because the What If series, if you look behind here, there's a bunch of comic books. What If series was one of my favorites going back. It always tested what if, literally, if something were to happen not in the right succession and what would be the ripple effect. And I just thought it was done so well in such a short time span where Hawkeye just didn't nail it. And like between those two, it was really hard. I mean, you told me to rank again some of the greatest content possible and knock one down a peg. So that was why I had to put Hawkeye right behind What If, because ultimately that last episode of What If was just so good. It was so good. And what it set up and what it's going to mean. And we already seen in Spider-Man, the most recent Spider-Man film.
Spoiler alert for those of you who haven't seen Spider-Man.
Again, what are you doing if you haven't seen Spider-Man?
If you haven't seen it at this point, I think you need to just cut it off.
It's the largest grossing film of all time, if I'm not mistaken, at this point. So I think the world has seen Spider-Man, and if you haven't, then...
I think a few days ago, it just took down Black Panther's record.
So there you go. At this point, if you haven't seen it, you've literally been under a rock, apparently. So, but with that being said, what it set up with having Stephen Strange being able to fight the Shimagora, like what is going to happen with that, and the setup that's in What If from that, like I don't know, it just put so many pieces in play that Hawkeye didn't do. Like Hawkeye was good, but it didn't shift these cosmic pieces into play. The Watcher was in there, like. So that's the only reason. I think there was just a lot larger dominoes falling in What If. That to me just made my nerd brain happier than in Hawkeye. And then ultimately that fight at the end of Kate Bishop and Kingpin, it kind of hurt my soul because my boy Kingpin was getting thrown around.
That was one of the things that I hated the most about Hawkeye was Kate Bishop would never do that to Fisk. Right?
Exactly.
And I understand what Marvel was trying to do. And I mentioned this to Vet when I was talking to Vet. I said, I just don't see Kate Bishop taking down the Kingpin.
Especially right after she just came into her own, right? This is a coming into her own series. This isn't Kate Bishop weather-worn to the degree that Clint was,
This is still milk on the breath, wet behind the ears, kind of Kate Bishop.
This is Kate just finally seeing Clint do his thing and get, like you said, get her feathers a little a little flustered, a little dirty, and then all of a sudden Kingpin
and that's who she's
rolls in, and she's like, "Oh, I got this." And I know there was the nod of doing the flick and hitting it, and then the significance of it actually being the brooches. Like I get that, like. Yeah. But at the same time, like, you can't just knock him out that quickly.
Not that quickly. But here's something that Vet pointed out to me, right? She says, but did she though?
Well, we know he's not. Right?
Because it comes off to us like she took him down, but she clearly didn't take him down.
We know he's not, granted.
Yeah, right?
Because...
But I have a whole different feeling about Hawkeye, though. And I'll explain when I explain why I ranked it like that.
Okay.
For me, I felt like my least favorite was What If because it was just that. It was what if.
Okay.
Right? And because we've read What If throughout the many decades that we've got the runs from the 70s and the 80s and all of those, right? We have seen all these different stories and we get a feel of that when we see What If. We get the nod with Chadwick and all that and it's beautifully done. But it's just that. What if, right? So for me, that got the lowest ranking for me.
A.P.A.C.